A disappointing jobs report shows the recovery may be stalling. All the while, the president's campaigning for re-election, trying to explain why the weak economy isn't his fault. Joining me now, Todd Buchholz, former White House economic advisor for George H.W. Bush, Rory Cooper, the Heritage Foundation's director of communications, and Guy Benson, political editor for townhall.com. Welcome all. Todd, I'm going to start with you on the numbers. The headline number was 8.1%. Once you dug into that report, though, it was all ugly. Do you think the media is going to interpret this as great news?
I don't think even the most tendentious reporter can somehow turn this into a positive for President Obama. And let's face it, after a while, the American people actually do see the truth. And the truth is, the job market is just plain lousy, has been lousy. Even if it gets a little better, it's getting only a little better. I remember when President Obama was talking about infrastructure projects and bridges and tunnels, and now I wonder whether he wanted tunnels so jobless people would have some place to sleep. Because it's just looking worse at this moment.
Yeah, well, it is looking worse. Rory, one of the most worrisome numbers that I've been following is the number of people leaving the labor force because they're so discouraged. Right. We've seen 2.7 million people leave this year alone. What do you make of that?
I mean, we're at the lowest level of the job force since 1981. It's only at 63%. People have just given up hope under President Obama. And the reason they're giving up hope is because they keep hearing the same policies over and over again from him. This week he's talking about, as you were just mentioning, infrastructure development. That's the same thing that the stimulus bill tried to do and failed. He's still trying to do the same stimulus policies that he proposed in 2009 and didn't work. All he can do is spend money and try to give winners and losers preferential treatment, and unfortunately, it's just not working. The results aren't there.
President now faced with criticism that he's trying to avoid talking about the economy. Here's how he responded today in Virginia.
The spokesman for the Speaker of the House said that we were, meaning me, we're just talking about student loans to distract folks from the economy. Now, this makes no sense because this is all about the economy.
All about the economy. Guy, what do you say?
That's silly. Of course, student loans have some sort of tangential relation to the economy, but when it comes to what Americans are feeling, whether Americans have jobs or not, that's the #1 indicator. And no matter how you spin today's report, it went down a little bit to 8.1%, the U3 number, but only because, as Rory was just saying, people are leaving the workforce, a 12% hike over last month. And if you look at the workforce participation, Jerry, from when President Obama took office and applied that to the jobless numbers today, the rate would be about 11%. That's abysmal. That's a tragedy. And this president is commander-in-chief. He's at the top, and the buck should stop at his desk.
Well, I think the big question here is going to be, where does this economy go over the next 12 months? Todd, what's in your outlook?
Well, I'll tell you, the best thing for President Obama in terms of the economy would be if the Supreme Court overturned Obamacare. Because Obamacare puts a tripwire in front of small businesses. It scares them from hiring. And the fact is, if the Supreme Court decides to overturn it, you might actually get a little bit of energy back into the job market. It would be a terrible embarrassment to the president, a terrible defeat. God knows how he'd attack the Supreme Court justices for doing so. But all in all, it'd probably be a good thing. Baseline forecast for the economy, more of the same. Just muddling through roughly 2% growth, creating, positive number of jobs each month, but nothing to put a smile on anybody's face. And I think this really does imperil the president's reelection.
Well,
there's not much time between now and November.
No, there's not much time. Rory, there was a little irony today in the president's speech because he was actually speaking at a luxury, what they call a luxury school, the Washington Lee School in Arlington, Virginia. $95 million building. They have a green roof that's just covered in plants, a 10-lane swimming pool, a cyber cafe. What do you say?
Hey, I would love for my kids to be able to go to school like that. The problem with President Obama's policies are that you end up with some people getting a good education and some people getting a terrible education because they have no choice. You notice he didn't go to a D.C. elementary school where he is trying to kill the D.C. Opportunity Scholarship Program, because these kids aren't going to graduate high school. It doesn't matter what student loan rates are. They're not going to make it to college because they're stuck in a broken system. So if you want the economy to get better, you need to start from the ground up, K through 12 and college and upper education. And back to the economy as well. You're talking about the next 12 months. In December, we're looking at the largest tax hike in history.
Oh my gosh.
So who's going to hire
Don't get me started. I can't even see that far. Guy, what do you, this school, have you ever been to this school? Because I know you spent a lot of time in Washington.
That's actually right in my neighborhood. I've never actually been there, but by the sounds of it, I should go check it out. It sounds amazing. And there's a little irony there, of course, but I'm actually very thankful that the president came out and started mentioning the student loans things again, because Mitt Romney and the congressional Republicans that he was bashing, they've already agreed, Jerry, that they're going to do this. The question is, and lock in the lower rate, which Democrats locked in. It was a trap to have it come up during an election year. Barack Obama didn't even vote on this when he was in the Senate because he was too busy running for president. But the question is, how do we pay for it? Republicans want to lower spending to pay for it. Barack Obama, what is his plan? Surprise, raise taxes on small businesses.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm just waiting. I was just waiting for a nice photo of the GSA guy, Neely, in that 10-lane swimming pool with a drink in his hand, setting, you know, just showing us exactly how government assets should be procured and how they should be used.
Well, you know, Rory, we were saying earlier in the show, it's the federal government workers that are doing so well through all of this. They've grown. The numbers of federal workers has grown over the last 3.5 years. Their pay has gone up. At the end of the day, it seems to me you're starting to feel like a chump unless you've got some kind of government paycheck coming in.
Well, and this is what it's all about. It's about growing government, and not just growing government, but growing government in your life. And we saw that with the president's campaign talking about Julia this week, about how the government's in your life from age 3 to age 67. And conservatives are saying,
we're going to get to that.
You know, we don't need government. We don't need government intervention at every step. And the growth of government contributes to that.
And just to finish up on the point.
By the way, there's a huge correlation between the increase in the federal workers and how they vote, which party they vote for.
I bet that's true.
So every time President Obama hires a federal worker, he raises his chances of earning another vote in the next election.
Well, not just that, we're the ones paying for it. We are funding and subsidizing directly those people's incomes. And that's something that taxpayers should never, ever lose sight of. We're footing that bill every single time.
I want to move on to this story about Medicare. The president, actually the White House, in filings with the Supreme Court, saying there would be extraordinary disruption to Medicare if Obamacare was rolled back. Now, keep in mind here, the system handles some 100 million monthly payments. So it's a very big deal to people out there. Guy, what do you say?
Oh, yeah. Okay, White House. We're really going to believe this one. Medicare has existed for decades. It got along just fine, to say nothing of their spending. That did not go along just fine, which is the big crisis today. But in terms of the administration of Medicare, it worked for decades. It will work again without Obamacare. But I'm glad, frankly, that the president is bringing up the issue of Medicare vis-a-vis Obamacare, because to pay for it, quote unquote, they raided $500 billion from Medicare and then tried to pretend that that $500 billion was going 2 different places to accomplish 2 different things. It can't happen, which is why Medicare is going bankrupt by 2024.
Well, and massively underfunded no matter what, whether there's an Obamacare or not. Rory, to you, so the administration saying they could freeze payment. This could freeze payments if Obamacare is rolled out. Do you believe this?
Yeah, of course not. You know, these are contractual agreements, and this is a scare tactic by the Obama administration, and this is the same type of scare tactic that keeps these large behemoth programs in place decade after decade, because they put them in place and then they try to scare people that once they're gone, there's going to be a catastrophe. In fact, President Obama, as Guy mentioned, Medicare's already been changed as we know it by President Obama. It's conservatives who are trying to offer an alternative that will rescue seniors right now who are going to not be able to find a doctor that will take a Medicare payment, and they're not, and the program itself is going to go insolvent. Conservatives have ideas. Tim Geithner, when he was testifying, said, "Hey, we don't have a plan. We just know we don't like yours."
I was surprised that that they even bring this up. But Todd, have you considered the economic viability of these plans under Obamacare, Medicare in particular?
Well, Medicare obviously is headed towards bankruptcy. It's entirely unfundable as is. Obamacare makes it worse, but it's funny, you didn't hear the administration say, hey, one of the problems with Obamacare is that it ultimately bankrupts private sector plans. They don't seem concerned about that. I mean, this is a problem caused by proposing something that very much looks like it may be unconstitutional. It's their fault for passing something maybe unconstitutional. This is like the captain of Titanic complaining there's too much ice in the drinks. It's their fault. They are not in a position now to tell us that taking back something unconstitutional would cause an administrative burden.
Good metaphor, Todd. I want to move on to this this little web video that the administration has put out called Julia. It's sort of a socialist fantasy. It's about this young woman who grows up cradle to grave getting money and benefits and all kinds of goodies from the federal government. Rory, what do you make of this? Because you came up with your own Julia.
Yeah, I mean, what a patronizing message to American women and Americans of all stripes to say that you need a government from 3 years old to 67 years old to be there at every benchmark in life. At the Heritage Foundation, we put together an alternative, a more optimistic alternative at boundary.org/Life of Julia, where you can actually show how someone like Julia does not need government interference at every stage of their life. At 3 years old, she's just a happy young girl. And when she's getting out of college, she has more opportunities for jobs. She wants a job. And in Life of Julia, President Obama has her living in her parents' basement until her mid-20s waiting for a government check. That's not a very optimistic outlook on life.
Guy, listen, let me just say, so we got Head Start, we got Obamacare, we got an SBA loan, we got Pell Grant. I mean, the list goes on and on. Guy, you look at this, what's your reaction?
Well, I think Rory used the word patronizing, which is a good word. But can I say, aside from the creepiness of it, because I think there was a certain creepiness to it, I think it's depressing. And I'm saying that seriously, because we have an entire political party in this country that is so devoted to this notion now of cradle to grave, total government dependency at every stage of life, that they're not just whispering about it, they're celebrating it. And I think as someone who wants to be able to pay for myself and self-reliant, I watch something like that, and it actually makes me sad. And I don't know how this is possibly going to be a political plus for them, this thing.
Todd, what do you say?
You talk about cradle to grave. What's going into the grave is the fiscal health and future of our children and grandchildren.
It's true.
I mean, who carries that cradle? Who carries that coffin and every other benefit that Julia purportedly receives? It's those who are working in this country, at least trying to get jobs in this country, under an administration that obviously has been totally incapable of creating or fostering a job-creating climate.
Wow, well, I guess we just put that one to rest. I couldn't agree with you guys more. Todd, Rory, and Guy, thanks so much for coming on tonight. Just fantastic conversation. Really appreciate your help.